Sing because then I will clear out the audience. But my name is Vanessa, Sardi. Good to see so many faces out here. How's everybody doing? Yeah? You got some good food? Good job. Just curious, would anybody be willing to share what brought them here today? Anybody? What brought you here today? I always find a mixture in the audience. Oh, what brought you here today? She's vegan. She's been vegan a long time. Wow. Your dad brought you here. What a good dad. What brought you here?
Well, I've been vegan for about 12 years, and I just started a nonprofit, and it's called South Florida Farmed Animal Transition, and I'm going to try to raise money so that I can buy land for the animals, so that when all the work that we've done, helping to get animals, helping to make people aware that animals suffer, and that there's so much better way to stay healthy than to eat animals. There will be a place for them to go. So I'm just starting out. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I always find a mixed crowd. Some people have been vegan for a long time. Some people have just gone plant-based. Some people are exploring the idea of going plant-based and are curious. So whatever your reason is, I'm so glad you're here because I have such an important message to share with you, and it comes from a long history in the pharmaceutical world. Don't throw anything at me, please. Yeah. But I love one of these quotes from Hippocrates, and my other favorite quote is, what's the other popular quote that he says? Food is medicine. Yes, very good. Thank you. Do I have to point? Probably this one. There we go. So just a tidbit about me and who I am. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana, and I moved to St. Petersburg 3 years ago. I worked in the medical field for 5 years with heart and lung disease patients, and then I got scooped up by the pharmaceutical industry. Thought it was amazing. I am a published author. I am a cardiovascular physiologist by education, and I have over 20 years of experience in the medical field. There we go. So from the medical field, I went into pharmaceutical sales. And I look at this and I laugh at it now, but when I think about my training, 4 weeks of home study, followed by 4 weeks at headquarters in a hotel room, and I wasn't allowed to leave. I had to stay there. They did not let you leave. And if you made anything less than an 85 on a quiz or a test, you were fired. No passing go, no collecting $200. A security escorted you out. You were done. And so this is kind of when I felt like the brainwashing began, was up during this training. When I got hired in pharmaceuticals, there we go, within the first couple of weeks, they brought me a brand new car right to my driveway. I didn't even have to go pick it up. I got free oil changes. I had a free gas card. They brought me a free computer. Of course, I needed a printer to go with my computer. A free phone. A corporate American Express card. I had never had an Express card or a credit card before. Free health insurance, which was amazing. Gym membership, didn't have to pay for that. Tennis shoes, just in case mine wore out. And let's not forget a computer bag. And there were many other perks that came along with this. So I'm 20-something years old, and all of this just came to my door within 2 weeks. What am I thinking? I'm about to do something big. I'm about to go out there and change the world. Why else would they be investing so much money and effort to train me? I'm about to make the world a better place. That's what I thought. So that wasn't quite the case though. So some people ask me, why would you leave all of that? Everybody knows pharmaceutical reps make really good money, right? Everybody knows the perks that I just showed up here. So why the heck would I leave that position? I was eating a chicken sandwich one day, watching Forks Over Knives. Anybody seen Forks Over Knives? Yeah. And about halfway through that documentary, I put the chicken sandwich down, and I haven't touched an animal product ever since then. But some other, thank you. But a lot of other things started to become clear to me, such as the connection that the pharmaceutical industry has with the food industry, with the meat industry, with the dairy industry, the collusion and the intertwining that goes on between these industries, these powerful multi-billion-dollar industries, is mind-blowing. You probably know that, of course, there is some level of collusion going on out there, right? And some collaborating. But to the extent is where I'm going to take you today. Some of the things I say will probably make you angry. Rest assured, when I found out that what I was selling was hurting people, I felt angry. I was beyond angry. But what I want to, at the end of this, do is hopefully, if you take away a gold nugget from anything that I have said today, from my years of experience in this industry, share it with somebody else. Spread the word. Let other people know. That's how we get healthier, right? It's a grassroots movement. You've probably heard that term thrown around quite a bit. So when I realized that medication that I was promoting for type 2 diabetes, heart disease, all the lifestyle diseases that we see today, when I realized that none of the drugs I was promoting was doing anything to reverse anybody's disease, I kind of had this epiphany. Then I started thinking about these massive bonus checks that I got every quarter. It's about the only thing I miss from that job. But when I thought about why I was getting bonus checks, it was because they were based off of prescription refills. So as long as you and you and you are going to refill your prescription every month or 3 months, I'm gonna get paid. So are these meds meant to reverse any condition? No. They're meant to maintain the condition. We don't want to kill the patient because we can't make money if you're not alive, right? But we're really not that interested in curing type 2 diabetes. Because if we were, guess what? The answer's out there. What is the answer? Yes, it's right here. It's right here. The answer is your lifestyle. If lifestyle got you into a nasty predicament, like type 2 diabetes, what's gonna get you out? Lifestyle change, not medication. Does anybody know of anybody that's ever reversed a chronic condition because they were taking a medication? Nobody. All right, just making sure. So what is health? Because health means something different to everybody. I think it's a personal question, right? Everybody has their own definition and their own meaning. Maybe it's the state of being free from illness or from injury. The World Health Organization says it is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. But whatever your definition of health is yours and it's right. But what I can tell you health is not. Health is not, well, my blood sugar's under control because I take diabetes medication. Health is not, my cholesterol looks great because I'm taking a statin. Health is not, my blood pressure is within a normal range because I'm taking blood pressure medications. And finally, health is not, well, my symptoms seem to be a little bit better from whatever autoimmune disease I'm suffering with, so I must be getting healthier. None of these define what health actually is. So let's look at spending. In 2014, does this number surprise anybody? 3.2 billion drugs were ordered or provided in physician offices. A lot of those came from samples that I used to drop off in physician offices. 70% of Americans are at least one prescription drug. Who knows somebody that's taking a prescription medication? Just about everybody. Over 50% are on 2. 20% of Americans are on 5 or more. Who knows somebody that takes 5 prescription medications? Wow, okay. And this was another huge realization for me, is I'd go into the doctor's offices and I would look at the people sitting, and the ones that had the largest boxes or the biggest Ziploc bags of medications were always the ones that looked the most unhealthy. They were pale, they were weak, they were frail, they didn't have any energy, they weren't enjoying life. And I said, what's going on here? These are supposed to be helping people. So US spending jumped 13% in 2014 to $374 billion. Oops. And he's not. Whoop. Excuse me, 1 second. I am not the most technical person out there. So, big pharma. Americans spent an all-time high of $475 billion on prescription drugs in 2015. By 2020, they expect that to go up to $610 billion. That's a lot of money. We're talking about conflicts of interest. When we talk about the Food and Drug Administration, who is supposed to be ensuring the safety of medications that come to market, well, pharmaceutical industry contributes to 2/3 of their budget. Conflict of interest, maybe? So through application user fees is how we get away with it. We just kind of come up with some term called application user fees, and we now are supporting the Food and Drug Administration by 2/3 of their budget we supply. From 1998 to 2016, pharma sold $3.5 billion on lobbying expenses. Now lobbying, that's a popular thing. Every industry has lobbyists. In fact, I know a guy who's a lobbyist in Louisiana, and because he lobbied for Uber, Uber got into Louisiana, right? So these are not the bad guys. But when they're lobbying against solutions that really aren't solutions, and human beings are at the end of that, and lives are being affected negatively because of it, that's where the issue comes in for me personally. Now, what's the first leading cause of death? Heart disease. Yes. Second? Cancer. Third? Medical error. Medical error is the third leading cause. The CDC didn't recognize it for a long time, but now I think if you Google it, they may say it publicly now. 225,000 Americans die each year as a result of medical error and medical treatments. This is unacceptable. This is just behind cancer. Just behind cancer. So what comprises that number, 225,000? Medication errors, 7,400. Unnecessary surgery, 12,000. Hospital errors, hospital-borne infections, drug adverse effects. Whoa, that's enormous. Third leading cause of death is medical error. So reference ranges is something I want to talk about too, because we get our cholesterol, we get our blood pressure, we get all these lab works and lab tests. But something to keep in mind is that perfectly healthy people live outside of the zone, the range suggested, and unhealthy people live in the range. So test results should always be evaluated taking the whole person into consideration. And the other part of this is that the smaller the abnormality, let's say you're pre-hypertensive, the smaller the abnormality, the less likely the drug is to work. If your cholesterol's on the borderline, the less likely that drug's gonna have anything positive, do anything positive for you. But yet, we've got these conditions called pre-diabetes, pre-hypertension. Does anybody know what the one for osteoporosis is? Osteopenia, right? Well, where do they come up with all of this stuff? Why do we keep getting lower? Is it because the data is supporting that if we start medicating people when they are earlier on in the disease, that they're gonna have better health outcomes? Because if that's the case, let's go for it, right? But is that the case? It turns out it's not the case at all. I did it again. I'm just gonna talk and put that thing down. So, in 1995, the blood sugar for which somebody could be diagnosed a type 2 diabetic was 140 milligrams per deciliter. What is it today? Anybody know? 126. It's only a 14-point difference, right? It's 14 points. So how did they do this? Why did they do this? Who did this? It turns out that the American Diabetes Panel convened these experts, a panel of experts, to come together and redefine the criteria for which somebody can be diagnosed a type 2 diabetic. So when they dropped that number by 14 points, from 140 to 126, which means if today your blood sugar is 140, tomorrow, after this panel of experts meets, you are gonna be a diabetic if you're 140. So what happened, can anybody tell me what happened when they lowered that number by 14 points? 1.9 million Americans became a type 2 diabetic overnight. What do shareholders of big corporations want to see? What kind of growth curve? Yes, we need to see a growth curve that does this. That's big business. That's in any industry, right? That's in any business. So how can we increase market share? How do we get that curve to go up? We figure out how to medicate more people. So we lower the threshold for which you can be diagnosed a diabetic or hypertensive or high cholesterol, so on and so forth. So who makes this decision? Anybody know? Let's see if we can figure out who makes this decision, if I could do this right. The head of the panel that redefined diabetes was a paid consultant to 7 companies that manufacture diabetes medication. 9 of the 11 people who redefined the criteria for hypertension, high blood pressure, had ties to drug companies that make drugs to treat it. 8 of the 9 panel members who changed the criteria for cholesterol worked for companies who manufactured statins. The criteria for diagnosis for osteoporosis, this is probably going to blow your mind because it blew my mind, was developed in partnership with the Osteoporosis Foundation. The advisory board for this group includes 31 drug and device companies. Why device for osteoporosis? The foot, the medical device that you put your foot on and it tests for bone density. So that's where the device companies come in, right? They have a financial interest in this. So big industry literally has their tentacles in every facet of life. They are in every medical journal. If you can't open the Journal of the American Medical Association that doctors read, or the American Academy of Pediatrics journal that doctors read for advice, without seeing a drug advertisement on between every article. You can't turn on the TV without seeing what? A drug commercial, right? So if you want to know who is paying for the media, just look at who's advertising in it. They own everything, right? Does this surprise anybody? No? All right. So changing criteria has resulted in a 14% increase in the diagnosis of diabetes, 35% increase in the diagnosis of hypertension, 86% increase in hyperlipidemia with high cholesterol, and an 85% increase in osteoporosis. So the makers of drugs like Fosamax and Boniva, this makes them very happy. They're making a lot of money from redefining criteria so that we can medicate more people. This to me was unacceptable. As the smoke cleared from my head while I was working in this industry, I started every day, I woke up more and more to the reality of what it was I was doing. Now, let me say this. Do medications have their place? Absolutely. If you get into a car accident, God forbid, and you have to go to the hospital, well, there's medicines that will save your life, right? In acute conditions. If you have a heart attack and you go to the hospital and you're in the middle of having a myocardial infarction or heart attack, there are medications that will save your life. So they have an important place. If you have an infectious disease and you need an antibiotic, right? That can save your life. So they have a place, right? But where we're failing the public miserably is in chronic conditions, diseases of lifestyle, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, many of the autoimmune diseases that we see today. We are failing miserably because what is the only way to cure a lifestyle disease? Change your lifestyle. Change your lifestyle, exactly. So this is where I have the issue, and I was selling lifestyle medications. So this is a little bit about what I talked about earlier, so I can kind of speed through this. But it was the American Diabetes Association that convened this group of experts that said, hey, let's lower the blood sugar reading. And we'll get more diabetics. Now, here's my other problem. If by lowering that number, thus medicating more people, if that led to better health outcomes, fantastic, right? That's what we're out for. At the end of the day, we just want to improve your health outcomes. At the end of the day, we don't want you to have a heart attack or a stroke if your cholesterol's too high. But that's not what we've been seeing with the usage of medication. It's not led to better outcomes. In fact, this blew my mind because I sold diabetes medications. I also sold combination therapy, you know, where they put 2 drugs into 1 pill. And we're like, oh, you'll get 1 pill for the price of 2, 1 copay, and you only have to take 1 drug. But what we found in a randomized trial of over 10,000 people, that's a lot of people, is that in the group where they drove down blood sugar with multiple medications to get them down below 6, a hemoglobin A1C of 6, And there was another group that just did moderate treatment. Maybe they got some metformin, but the goal was to get their A1C down to 7. So less aggressive treatment. They had to stop that study early. And then let me tell you, it costs millions of dollars to conduct a study in the pharmaceutical world. We'll do everything we can to not have that study stopped. That's very, very bad. In fact, rarely will we conduct a study unless we already know the outcome is going to look good for us, because it's millions of dollars to conduct a study. So chances are we already know. We won't do a head-to-head study with another drug, right? If they're two statins, unless we were 100% sure that we showed superiority, that we were better. We're not going to do it. We just won't. So people were dying that were getting aggressively managed with more medications. So they had to stop the study early. 25% more likely to die. If you were in the aggressive arm, getting multiple medication therapies, getting your A1C, driving that number down to less than 6, you were 25% more likely to die. Here we go. So here are 2 studies, and I'm not going to go through all of them because I don't want to bore you, but these were huge studies looking at intensive treatment in diabetes compared to other people who were getting less aggressive treatment. So here are more evidence. Here's more evidence. The Accord trial, the Advanced study. In fact, the Advanced showed no reduction in heart attacks and strokes. None with intensive therapy. So my question to you is this. If you take a medication, do you take it so that your lab work looks pretty? Or do you take it because you don't want to die of a heart attack or a stroke? Or you don't want to lose a limb or go blind from type 2 diabetes? Why do we take medicine? We don't want to die, right? We don't want to lose a limb. If it shows no reduction in heart attacks or strokes, what in the heck is that medicine doing? It's showing pretty lab work, and that's it. So, one more study that was done that showed this. The Veterans Affairs Diabetes Trial, another huge study looking at veterans who had type 2 diabetes. Patients either got intensive treatment or standard, and they found that the ones that were given the more medications, 18 pounds was the weight gain with the intensive group, 102 deaths in the intensive group, and the number of sudden death was 3 times higher in the group that was treated with advanced therapy. Wow. Something's going wrong, right? More serious adverse events. What we're seeing is a lot of hypoglycemia, blood sugar that drops too low in the groups that were treated intensively. So I want to tell you a little story about surrogate markers. Does anybody know what a surrogate marker is? No? Good. It's usually somebody. So the surrogate marker is cholesterol. C-reactive protein. You've heard of C-reactive protein. Tumor shrinkage. Blood pressure, right? Things you'd see on your lab results. That's what surrogate markers are. Here's the biggest problem. If you take nothing home with you, take this. Back in the 80s when the HIV epidemic exploded, it made sense to rush drugs to the market for those patients because they were knocking at death's door. They didn't care about the safety. They didn't care about the side effects. They were trying to live. And it made sense, right? So the bill passed in Congress that if a certain drug would show that it improved T-cell count, we're gonna let it come to market. These people are dying anyway, and if it helps, fantastic, right? The problem is that all the other companies kind of piggyback on that law that was passed in Congress, and suddenly If you can lower cholesterol, you get to go to the market. If you can make a drug that will lower blood sugar, you get to go to the market. What we need to be looking at is, if by lowering your cholesterol, that's step one. Now let's look to see if we've reduced your risk of having a heart attack or stroke. And if we have then accomplished that, then you get to go to the market, right? Then and only then. Does anybody know when the safety studies actually begin for a drug? Yes. Oh, you're just waving. When the drug hits the market for the public. There are 4 phases of drug research. First, they start on animals. Second, they start on humans, but only about 20. Then phase 3, they do anywhere from a couple of hundred to 2,000 people that only have that specific condition the drug is intended to treat. They don't have any other complications. That's all they have, right? That's phase 3. After phase 3, it goes to market, goes on the shelves. Your doctor can now prescribe it for you. You can now get it at the pharmacy. Now phase 4 begins. Now the real safety study begins. And if you look in the package insert of any FDA-approved label online, and you go to the section that says post-marketing data, this is the data that we collect once the drug has been released and people start reporting these adverse events. Because now we see what happens in the real world population with people that have multiple things going on. That's the real world. But that's where we conduct our safety studies. So I have to say, if your doctor wants to prescribe a brand new medication to you, make sure you know you are part of that safety study, right? I should have made a disclaimer in the beginning. Please, if you take any medications, do not discontinue or reduce the dosage of anything you take without speaking to your physician first. Say yes, if you heard me. Okay, good. But ask questions, right? Always ask questions to your physician. You have every right. And if he seems like he's rushed because he's got a room full of patients down the hallway, I don't care. You keep him in that room and you ask him, is there an alternative to this drug or to this surgery or to this diagnostic test? What is it? What's the benefit-risk ratio? What's gonna ask as many questions, because I'll tell you what, here's when I walked away from the industry for good. This is not to say all doctors are bad, right? Everybody say yes. Doctors are wonderful people, right? There are bad seeds in every occupation, right? But here's what broke the straw that broke the camel's back for me was when I went into a physician's office. I met one of his cardiology patients. She was in her 60s, terrified. And the doctor was trying to decide whether he was going to send her to get an angiogram. Does everybody know what an angiogram is? Angiogram is when they put a wire into your heart and they inject dye into the vessels to see if you have any blockages. So it's a pretty invasive procedure. Understandable why she would be so afraid, right? Well, we did this blood test to see if she in fact needed to have that angiogram. Turned out she did not. At that moment in her life, she was okay. So I go back to the doctor's office because now I've seen this patient, I've talked to her, I have felt her fear, and I am so excited to go back into this doctor's office and for the doctor to go in and tell her, at this time, you don't need an angiogram. And I couldn't wait to see her smile when she came out. But that's not what happened. A very different story happened. The doctor came out, and I said, so how did it go? What did she say? He said, you know what, Vanessa? I think I'm just gonna do the angiogram anyway. I said, you're gonna do what? He said, I'm just gonna do it anyway. I'm like, why? Why would you do that? We know beyond any shadow of a doubt she's not what she needs right now. I know, he said, but you know, I hate clinic. I'd rather be in the procedures. And my jaw hit the ground. I said, so let me make sure I understand this correctly. You're gonna take a patient to have an invasive procedure that comes with a 1% mortality rate, which is not insignificant, right? And she's terrified because you are bored? He said, yeah, why not? He lost sight that this was a human being sitting in the room. He got caught up into the system, right? Now, not all doctors are like this. Most of the doctors I called on were amazing people. Amazing people wanting to do good by their people. There's a bad seed everywhere, right? But I tell you this story because before you agree to do anything, ask questions. Why? Is there another option? Is this all there is? What are the risks? Do the benefits of doing this outweigh the risks of doing this? What if I don't do it? Do I have time? Right? You always have time to go think about it. Go home, do your research, get back to them next week. Be an informed patient, right? Be your own best health advocate. That is the best thing that you can do for yourself. And that's the message that I want you to go home with today of anything else. But back to the surrogate marker story, I want to just talk quickly about statins because how many people know somebody that takes a statin? Yes. So why would we take a statin? Now that you've heard everything I've said, what would be the reason to take a statin? Because you don't want to die of a heart attack. You don't want to have a heart attack, let alone die from one, right? You don't want to have a stroke, let alone die from a stroke. So you hope that in taking this Lipitor or Crestor or Zocor or whatever statin it is, there's so many of them, you're hoping that by taking this and seeing your cholesterol come down on your blood work, it's exciting, right? And the assumption is, great, I'm reducing my risk of having a heart attack or a stroke. But that's just looking at surrogate markers. Cholesterol is just a surrogate marker. And can anybody guess the best data on a statin? What percentage risk reduction for the best statin out there? Any guesses? Y'all are quiet. I hear 0. 0.4. Let's see a 0 way back there. The best statin is 1.6. And that's nothing, right? And you can Google this online and cross-reference and read all of the data on the FDA-approved package inserts. The best statin is a 1.6. What are all the side effects that come with that statin? Muscle pain, liver toxicity. The benefits do not outweigh the risk of taking that medicine, yet how many people are on it? So how did this happen? This is important. I'm gonna show you real quick what I used to do, which I didn't know better at the time, but I do now. And that was how we manipulate data. So I think my battery is dying. So those are the diabetes meds. So I'm trying to get to the, I wish I had a whiteboard. Here we go, statistics from drug studies. So you hear on TV, we reduce your risk by 44%, right? Or we reduce your risk by 50%, or even 35%, which would be fantastic if that was the case. But it's not. It's not the case at all. So here's how we make drugs look like they're performing better than they really are. This is mind-blowing. So let's say you invent a drug, a statin, and you said, okay, I'm gonna see how my statin does in a study. And so you have 200 people that you divide up into 2 groups, 100 in one group, and they get a placebo, which is a sugar, kind of like a sugar pill, it's just there's no active ingredient in there. 100 patients are gonna get the medicine you created. Let's see how they do. Well, the people who took your drug, 2 of them out of the 100 suffered a heart attack over a 5-year period. the 100 people that took the other drug, or the placebo with no active ingredient, 4 people suffered from a heart attack over a 5-year period. What is the risk reduction? 4 minus 2? 2%. Now, if I go into a doctor's office and I say, "Doc, I've got this statin and it drops cholesterol, amazing, and there's all these side effects, but don't worry about that because your patients are going to get a 2% reduction in their risk of dying." Do you think I would sell any drugs? No, no way. So instead, 2 is what of 4? It's half of 4. Whoa, I just went from 2% to 50% reduction. That sounds better, doesn't it? That's going to be a much easier way to sell the product. Sounds illegal, doesn't it? But there's a little thing called absolute risk reduction and relative risk reduction. Absolute is the number you want to know. 4 minus 2, 2%, right? Relative, well, 2 is half of 4, so that's technically 50%. Forget about the other 96 people that were in the study. They don't matter, right? This is how we manipulate data. What you hear on the news is the 50%, right? That's what you hear on the news. That's what I told to doctors. That's what was in my sales aid. But here's the truth. So another fun question to ask your doctor is, what's the absolute risk reduction that this drug is going to prevent me from having any negative consequences we're trying to prevent? So that's another important piece. Now, I want to stop there for a second and see if anybody has any questions. Where am I on time, guys? Because, did good. Does anybody have any questions? Or comments? Yes?
There's a sort of a new...
Come up, can you come up? Thank you.
Yeah, there's a sort of a new sort of industry that's emerging called health coaching, because it seems that the doctors don't really know what's best for us in terms of our lifestyle management. So this industry is coming out. Can you give your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So did everybody hear what he said? There's the health coaching industry. I'm actually a health coach. That's one of the things that I do, health and nutrition coaching. But you have to be careful. You just have to be careful. Do your homework on the person, right? What's their background? Do they know about nutrition? Because you got people at the gym telling people what to eat. You need this much, I heard it the other day at the gym, you need to have this much protein, animal protein. And I cringed, right? But they called themselves a health coach. And so I wish that they'd get a little more stringent with who's allowed to call themselves that and who's not. There's really no, it's not like, you get your master's degree in something, there's rigorous testing, right? That person knows their stuff, or if they have a PhD. So I think it's a wonderful field, because I am one. I also think that you should do your homework and make sure that this person, if they're going to be giving especially nutrition advice, that's the big thing, right? If they start telling you to eat dairy and 100 grams of protein, they probably don't know. They probably don't know as much as they need to make the best informed decision for you. But I think that's a great question, and I thank you for bringing that up. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
How do the pharmaceuticals avoid responsibility for side effects, especially the ones that result in death?
Great question. How do they avoid? Well, we don't always avoid. While I was, during my career in pharmaceutical sales, we had the company I was with had the largest lawsuit in the history of pharma, which was at $3 billion. But for us, that's what we keep on the side in preparation for stuff like that. So we keep billions of dollars that go towards paying for lawsuits like that. Now, if it is a vaccination, you cannot sue a manufacturer for a vaccine. And you cannot sue if you're injured, right? And you cannot sue a doctor that administers it because the CDC is actually kind of an extension of the vaccine industry. They buy and sell $4.6 billion annually from, I used to work for one of the largest vaccine manufacturers in the world. And I'm not saying whether I'm for them or against them, because that's a very personal choice and it's not for me to say. But in answering this gentleman's question, that's the one pharmaceutical product that they've been indemnified for. You cannot sue them. So it's actually taxpayer dollars, our taxpayer dollars, that go towards paying for an injury if you're injured by the vaccine. I was actually paralyzed from the flu vaccine, from the hips down, for a period of time. So, but if I wanted to sue, I couldn't, because the CDC protects them. So in some regards, they're protected by government, and in others, we just take the lawsuit, but we've got lots of money that we put aside. I say we, I don't work for them anymore. They have lots of money they put aside to prepare for that. Any other questions? What was your biggest aha moment today? Anybody willing to share what their biggest aha moment or learning? Or maybe you didn't have any? Anything that you learned that you didn't know before? Or did I just maybe go deeper down the rabbit hole? So the answer to chronic lifestyle conditions is not in a prescription, right? It's in the food we eat. I've never seen a lifestyle since I've been health coaching, which is what I did when I left pharma. I left pharma, now I help people get off of many of the drugs I used to myself sell. So I've never seen a lifestyle that can reverse so many conditions, because we have a drug that helps us pee, we have a drug that helps us do the other thing, we have a drug that helps us sleep, we got a drug for everything, right? You're sad, we got a drug for that. You're angry, oh, you can't regulate your emotions, we've got drugs for that, right? But there's one lifestyle I've seen over and over and over and over and over and over again reduce so many of these conditions. There's something to be said for that, right? Did you have a statement, comment? Yeah. They told me I couldn't come off the stage, otherwise I'd meet you.
The exercise. My husband and I have been plant-based for 6 years, and it's turned our life around. What I find so disheartening is when you do find a doctor that has your best interests and does know about nutrition and you're working with. I have a friend that went to a doctor like this, but then the insurance company dropped her. They didn't want to deal with her. And so, yeah, we have to seek out the doctors, but then we keep running into obstacles. It's like they keep throwing things in front of us, and it's just, what can we do besides, I mean, I don't know. It's just so frustrating.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're amazing.
Oh, you're welcome. Did everybody hear her comment or concern? She said, you know, but we go to doctors, and then if we don't take the drugs they prescribe, they drop us. And I'm so glad you brought this up, because there's something. Has anybody ever heard of what's called the standard of care? Yes. Standard of care. The standard of care is a set of guidelines that tell physicians, if your patient has a cholesterol of this, they go on that. If their blood pressure is here, you give them this. Now, I have had doctors say to me, Vanessa, I can't stand statins. It makes me sick every time I prescribe one. But if that patient walks out and has a heart attack and dies, I didn't practice the standard of care, which says cholesterol here, statin. And then they get sued. So there are, a lot of them know, but there's this thing called standard of care, and there's nothing to protect them from getting sued. So they will follow the standard of care if that makes sense. So what do you do, which is the follow-up question, how do you avoid this? Well, you can find amazing doctors like Dr. Delaney over there. Or you just put your foot down and you say, I've done my homework, I've done my research, and I've decided that I'm going to use food as my medicine. I hope you can support me, and if not, I'll find another doctor. I'll find one that will. Because you're the only person that has to live in this body. Nobody else. You're the only one waking up in this skin tomorrow. You're the only one that has to experience the joys, the sorrows, the pains, the aches. You're the only one. So at the end of the day, if your doctor doesn't support your decision to use food as medicine, it's time to find a new doctor. And there are really good ones out there. So Dr. Delaney's one of them, I see. But great point. Thank you for bringing that up. I hope that helped to answer your question and address your concern a little bit. Got another one? Yes?
This gets to be real complicated.
Yeah.
Who sets the standard of care? And then also the other question is, we are not technical people. We're not pharmacists, we're not chemists, we're not doctors. We depend upon the doctor to be the doorkeeper and protect us. And then they can't protect us because there's a standard of care. This is really a very dangerous system.
He makes an excellent point, and that's why Dr. T. Colin Campbell, everybody knows that name, I'm sure, huge hero of a lot of people here, Dr. Esselstyn, but Dr. Campbell in particular calls this a disease care system. It's not a healthcare system. So yes, it's very, very difficult to navigate, and once you get caught in the disease-mongering system, right? You go in for something, they give you one pill. You have a side effect, they give you another one. Something spawns from that, they give you another one. Now you're in the disease-mongering system. It's so hard to get out. It's so hard to get out. Let me give you one quick case study because it's amazing. This girl is amazing. She was diagnosed bipolar. They had her on they layered 3 heavy-duty medications. I'm talking heavy-duty. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to try one. If it doesn't work, you wean them off of that, let their body flush, try another one. You don't keep layering antipsychotic meds. So instead of the first medicine, she looked like she got worse. Instead of saying, well, maybe this isn't the right medication for her, they say, whoa, she's way worse than we thought. We better give her something else. And then her symptoms got a little bit more strange. And they said, holy moly, how did we miss this? She must be way worse than we ever imagined. And they give her a 3rd one. Instead of thinking, maybe it's the meds. Long story short, she changed to an entirely plant-based lifestyle. She got off all 3 of those drugs, and she doesn't fit any of the criteria for bipolar. She doesn't. So, just a little food for thought. Thank you so much for your time and energy and attendance and questions. I appreciate it. Be well.